headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Marcus Gilroy-Ware is the author of the book about After the Fact, The Truth About Fake News, also a lecturer at the University of the West of England. Joins us now. Marcus, good afternoon to you.
Hi there, thanks for having me.
You see this stuff up close and personal on a daily basis as well. To say that social media has accelerated fake news is perhaps an obvious statement. Does it surprise you by how much?
No, not really. I mean, I think we have to remember that, with social media platforms, we tend to deal with the platforms themselves, but behind them are companies whose main product is our attention. And so they put whatever features they need onto those platforms to make sure that we stay on them, that we spread as much information as we can, that we post as much content as we can muster. That's their main drive. That's what keeps their shareholders happy. So, no, I'm not surprised at all by the scale.
Does it still, when you read this stuff, does it disappoint you or does it alarm you? I was talking specifically about the Putin stuff, and that there is this small but perfectly formed group who will have nothing bad said against Vladimir Putin. And you think, well, you haven't got to be a student of Russian politics to see a pretty long list of some very bad things this man has done. So where does that come? So when you read that kind of almost unchallenged support that people post and then it's supported and liked by somebody else, does it just make you laugh, or should we be deeply concerned about this?
Well, I mean, sometimes these things are ridiculous enough to make you laugh. Certainly they are concerning, but I think what's really interesting is the way that our relationship to power has changed in the last really, how far do you go back? It's changed slowly over a long period of time. But if you look at various controversies, instances where there's been misinformation, we could look at Brexit, we could look at COVID, we could look at, the Donald Trump election, and now we look at war in Russia. In all these cases, there's been a sort of, I guess you could say, a prevailing elite, kind of centrist elite who want us to follow certain instructions about the way they see, accord with the way they see the world. And I think both left and right are a little bit tired of the kind of some of the maybe sloppy reasoning or hypocrisy that exists in those kinds of prevailing dominant arguments. And so that explains the success both of left and right candidates around the world. But it also means that if we're very, very suspicious and, unwilling to go along with what we're being asked to believe, excuse me, then we are going to be looking for alternative narratives there.
So
that's kind of what's driving these things.
So we've perhaps lost faith. There is an apathy about our politics, about our leaders, and where there's a vacuum, then these kind of that's fertile ground, if you like, for alternative thinking.
Absolutely, it's what we call sense making. So people are trying to make sense of increasingly distressing circumstances, wars, referendums, pandemics, whatever, and the standard narrative that they're offered, which may be correct. I mean, taking a vaccine is unequivocally a good thing to do. But because people are so disenfranchised with those kind of mainstream sources of power, they'll go and find any kind of alternative narrative that they can get their hands on.
But I would get that more if people were just kind of floating the idea of, look, we don't like Biden, we don't like Macron, we don't like Schultz, we don't like Johnson, whoever. And maybe, this World Economic Forum or Putin or all of these things that are part of this big tapestry of interesting theories, maybe there's something in another way of thinking. Now, if somebody floated that idea, Marcus, I could understand that. But we're talking about people who are unequivocal, people who are absolutely sold that this entire planet Earth of ours, its political structures, its economics, its future, its destiny, are all constructed in very different ways, and they are 100% sure about that. It's the level of surety that is interesting.
It is interesting. I think we have to remember that, in a way, these structures of power are things that really shape a lot of our lives. There is, in some sense, there's something irreducible about them, right? They're there when you go to the doctor. They're there when you go to court. They're there. And much of them are things that do keep our kind of societies ticking over. But you can't sort of dabble in these things. Once you decide, you can actually, but especially if your relationship to information sources is already not good, once you decide that there's an alternative way of looking at all of these things together, it becomes kind of completely enveloping. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people, for research reasons, who kind of believe in these kinds of things, and it becomes like a sort of it's like talking to someone who's completely sold on a very kind of strict religious interpretation of something. There is nothing you can say that if you offer any kind of proof to the contrary, you become then, in their eyes, part of the conspiracy that they're up against.
Yeah. I've had that. We've been on air for 20 minutes so far, Marcus. I've already had a dozen people tell me that I am a lackey for the New World Order. So, and I assume by definition, by association, you are too, Marcus.
I've had it as well, yeah, I'm used to it.
Indeed. I'll see you in Davos, Marcus. Don't be late this time, if you can help it. Thank you for being with us. Marcus Gilroy-Ware, that's his area of life. He is the author of the book, After the Fact, The Truth About Fake News. He also lectures over there at the University of the West of England.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.